Welcome, you chocolatey, coconutty macaroon, to Cop On Podcast. This is a Cop On special. I'm delighted to welcome back the mighty John Gibbons from the Anfield Wrap. And you should know what the Anfield Wrap is because it's the best Liverpool podcast out there, in my opinion. And thank you, John, for joining us. If you, by any chance, you don't know what the Anfield Wrap is, then number one, where have you been? And number two, please check them out. Google it, get on their YouTube channels, subscribe to the marvelous Anfield Wrap, because I love your stuff, John. How are you, John? How was your summer?
It was good, thank you. Yeah, very much enjoyed it. Enjoyed a bit of a break after the intensity of everything going on with Jurgen. And yeah, nice time with the family. And then I was raring to go come Ipswich, which is the right way to approach a season.
That is the right way to approach a season. So, have you been to any of the matches yet?
Yeah, I went to Ipswich, so that was good. And then I went to the first home game as well. I did not go to Old Trafford. Watched it on the TV here in Liverpool. But yeah, I've been really impressed with what I've seen. I think we all have, but particularly last weekend against United and how easily they swept them aside was a joy, really. And so I think all of us are cautiously very excited, if that is a way to be, about what we're seeing on the pitch, what we're seeing from the new manager, and how the players are embracing the Slot era.
Where did you watch the match against United?
I was in a pub, the newly refurbished Munro, which is it's a classic Liverpool boozer that unfortunately closed for a couple of years, but has been restored. I'd say even beyond its former glory. They've done a great job on it. So we were up there, and it's my first game I've watched there, and we won. So it goes on the lucky list now. As opposed to a couple of others where I'm always loath to watch a game because you remember the bad result there. Not that it matters at all, of course, but we're all superstitious idiots on these things. So yes, this one very much goes on the good list because we had a great start.
Excellent stuff. And how many people were there in the Monroe? How many people could you pack into it?
Well, we had a nice little. So I hosted the post-match pint there. So we had our own little space. So it worked out quite well. So there was about 12 of us who all sort of knew each other. So we were quite a nice little formation, like a mini cop, if you will. All sort of in a huddle watching it together. And then there's a bigger room upstairs, and then plenty of space downstairs as well. So. Yeah, there was a good number of people in there, not too packed, but certainly able to create a good racket when we scored.
Excellent stuff. Because I've been watching from afar, as I do, as lots of our listeners do with Cop On. It's sort of it's amazing to us that you can get to go to the matches, because it's like a dream, for the international Reds to go there. I mean, the last time I was there was present for my 40th birthday. 4 years ago now, and it was just a wonderful thing. I saw Liverpool beat Southampton 4-0. We scored all 4 goals in the second half. Don't know if you remember that. It was kind of a standard match for the Jurgen Klopp pomp that was around about 2020. It was absolutely beautiful. But of course, that memory will live with me forever. Whereas you go regularly to see the mighty, wonderful Reds that mean so much to a lot of people around the planet. And I just wonder what you make of it in terms of like going to the match, because my initial thoughts on Slot and Slot ball, it's really exciting, but what I love about it is how it's what I would call sensible soccer, because they don't seem to be that many risks. For example, there was a moment in the 87th minute or whatever against Brentford when Szoboszlai was breaking through, and he had 2 risky passes on, one to Gakpo, one to Elliott, and he was running through, and 100% of the time, if that was a Jurgen Klopp team, he would have tried one of the passes because they'd made these lung busting runs. But no, he ran with the ball for about 20-30 yards. He didn't make the pass. He stopped, he turned around, and he passed it backwards. And in a way, I love that. But when you're watching it live, is it new to try to get used to a kind of more patient approach from the team, or is it the same kind of passion in the crowd?
It's a little bit early to say. I think it's, we've only had one home game so far, and I think, so we'll see sort of how the season goes, and a bit more, knowledge and data on how it might affect, the crowd. But it does feel different. I think it is fair to say it's a little bit more, cautious, a bit more planned, a little more deliberate, less heavy metal football, and more. I don't know. You're better with the words than me, Owen. But I don't know how you describe it musically. But it's not the crash bang wallop of a mosh pit like Jurgen Klopp's football was. Sometimes it felt like you were in a mosh pit when you were watching it, whereas this kind of is a little bit more of a symphony, if you like. And when you're watching a symphony, obviously you behave differently than you do when you're watching AC/DC or Metallica or whatever it might be. I'm still confident the crowd will be there for the team when they need them, and I think that's always been sort of the Anfield way, really. I think sometimes, like you say, I've been lucky enough to go to a lot of football games. I first got a season ticket when I was 10 in 1992. As a point of order, I can't believe you're older than me, Owen. It must be the Parisian wine or something. But you look terrific. So I must get your secrets after we recording. But yeah, so I've seen a lot of football, and a lot of football at Anfield in particular, and I do feel very fortunate, to pick up on your early point that I have been able to do that. But also, I'm quite wary of any false nostalgia and any it was better in the olden days or in my day and stuff like that. There's always been games where the atmosphere's been electric, and there's always been games where people have just had a nice little chat and watched Liverpool win. The home game against Brentford very much felt like the latter, but that was fine. And I'm sure if there was a period where the team did need a little rousing, the cop will always be roused and be rousing. And so I think that's the sort of the way it's kind of always been, really, and so it might continue. But I think there will be some adjustments generally to watching the team. I think there is a lot more, involving the goalkeeper in the passing and in the build-up play. And I think, for some of a nervous disposition, they might have to get a little bit kind of used to that. But I think Slot slipped there. I think Slot still wants his team to attack. I think he still wants them to create chances, and I think he still wants to be on the front foot and controlling games. It's just the how, really, rather than the aim that's changed a little bit more. But football is a simple game, and you score more than the opposition, you tend to win, and that's what we've done so far. We haven't conceded a single goal. We scored in 2s or 3s, and in each game, I think, left a little bit in the tank. And I think that's been quite nice as well to watch. You always felt like with Jurgen teams, they put in every drop of ounce of effort every time they went on the pitch. And listen, as supporters, we love that, because you always think, well, that's what I would do if I was fortunate enough to be talented enough to play for Liverpool. But I guess, it is a long season, and the seasons are getting longer the more games they put in. And so I think we need to be sort of, realistic sometimes, although I would have loved them to have gone for the throws against Manchester United and scored 4 or 5. Really, it's still 3 points. And as soon as that was secured, they kind of, almost had a warm down, really, the last 20 minutes or so, which is probably more sensible moving forward. So yeah, it's all looking good at the moment. It is a little bit different, but generally, if the team is winning, then supporters are happy.
And I've got a question from Nigel, our collaborator and friend here at Hob on, that's different. That's Scouse parlance, isn't it? Hop on. And our friend Nigel, he asks, basically, how far do you think we can go with Arne Slot's tactics? As in, the way Nigel phrased it was, do you think we're actually playing within ourselves, or is it just the change of style that makes it seem that way?
Yeah, it's a really good question, because they do look like they have more to give, and they do look like, both individually and collectively, there is more to come. But is that a deliberate thing, or is that because they're still, adapting themselves? I mean, it feels like they've adapted very well to what the manager's asking them to, and it feels like it's all happened fairly quickly, and that's testament to the player's intelligence as well as the coach and how well he's able to get across his opinions and styles, I guess. But it does feel like there is more, from you feel like with certain individuals, they could go up a level again, and you feel like collectively that as they're still gelling with each other and gelling a new system, that there's more to come too, which is exciting, which is really exciting. But whether that's a kind of a slight holding back, or whether that's just from familiarity with each other and with the new regime, I'm not entirely sure. I suspect it's a little bit of both. Like I said, there was, I think in each of our 3 games, actually, if they needed to score another goal for whatever reason, I think they could have, and I think they would have. But I think it's a little bit more pragmatic, and it's a little bit more. I think the manager's funny, isn't he? He seems just very logical and very straight and very, in a way, kind of unemotional, really. And I think he thinks, well, if that game's won, then why would you chase around and risk injury or extra fatigue, and then through that comes injury, for, you talked about risk before, Owen, you talk about them taking risks on the ball, but I think it's off it as well. I think it's, it's taking risks with your body, it's taking risks with, well, if we got 6 men forward for a counter attack and we lose the ball, how much work is it to sort of get back? And so it's not taking risks with shape, which I think has really helped us defensively, because anytime there has been little mistakes, I think they've been able to sort of bail each other out, whereas maybe in the past, one guy make an error and it always seemed to lead to a chance on goal. And so I think that it's a bit more calculated in many ways across the pitch, really, and how far that can go. I mean, time will tell. There is the ongoing Man City problem of them being phenomenal, and anyone is sort of competing to that. But I do feel like we can get more points than we did last season, and I wasn't necessarily thinking that a month ago, when it wasn't necessarily looking like we were going to improve the squad. And I was sort of thinking, well, how can a new manager come in and get more out of them than Jurgen did? I mean, Jurgen was the messiah, but it does feel like, with the development of certain players and with maybe a slightly sort of different approach, that maybe they'll have a bit more in the tank come April and May, and that will hopefully allow us to take that extra step or two, and we'll see where that brings us.
Yeah, it's a very interesting answer, and it's avoiding injuries as well that's going to be absolutely key, especially considering that we haven't really signed anyone apart from Chiesa. I mean, there's Mamardashvili, which I was trying to look at how to pronounce. Apparently Georgian is like Japanese. I'm sure you knew that anyway, John.
I did not.
Because the Japanese language, somebody explained it to me once, in fact a Japanese person explained it to me once, that in Japanese there is no stress in the language, not as in problems, but stress on the syllable. So for example, in English there's a massive difference between important and impotent, right? So because it depends on wherever you put the stress on the word changes the meaning of, when you're speaking. Obviously when you're writing it's different, but when you're speaking, so yes, important, obviously the second syllable, impotent on the first syllable, we put the stress, and that actually influences the meaning. And when you think about it, and when you actually listen to English, for example, boom, boom, it's got a natural rhythm to it based on the stress of the syllables. Georgian, like Japanese and also like French, but you knew that anyway, has no stress whatsoever, which is why we don't say Konate, we say Konate, because it's boom, 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 you see? So Mamardashvili apparently is 5 syllables, and you have to pronounce them all with the equal stress.
There we are.
Anyway, I digress. I just was looking that up. I found that quite interesting. But anyway, so apart from Chiesa, because Italian has stress, Chiesa, which means church. Did you know that? It means
I did know that, yes.
Fred Church is how you translate Federico Chiesa, which is very
always funny. It's funny, isn't it, with these names when you translate them, they're a lot less glamorous.
Exactly. Giuseppe Verdi was Joe Green.
Exactly. It's not quite as romantic as it seems. Yeah.
But yeah, sorry, I'll get to the question in a minute. So yeah, apart from these two players that we signed, Mamardashvili for the future, and Chiesa for now. It's the tightwad Reds, right? It's the stingy guys, the misers, the parsimonious Reds, not wanting to spend a carrot on anyone because we've got number sixes coming out of our ears. We've got Gravenberch, we've got Jones, whatever. But keeping them fit is going to be key. How would you rate that transfer window out of 10? Because despite how well it's gone in the first 3 games, I still think that's a huge mistake to not recruit.
Yeah, I think you'd be pushed to give it any more than a 4 out of 10, really. The goalkeeper looks a good one, but he's obviously not coming anytime soon, and so he's not really adding to the squad in the short term. The Chiesa, it looks a really good player, and I think is an exciting addition. And although there's risks involved, I think it's an area of the pitch where we can take a bit of a calculated risk because we've seen, not least at the weekend, just what impressive firepower we have there. And so if he's able to add as and when and add real quality, then fantastic. But I do feel like we're a little bit short in the middle still, and like you say, you worry in the future. You know, at the moment it's all nice, isn't it? And it's 1 game a week, and we're able to keep picking the same team, and it's a team that looks really strong, both collectively and as individuals. But when we are needing to rotate, I think it's particularly in the midfield where we're going to struggle to do that and keep the same levels of quality and intensity, really. I'd have loved one more in there in particular. I'd have possibly done another defender as well, but I think you can hopefully, you know, if we're fortunate enough with injuries, get away with a little less, you know, rotation there. You know, there'll be some games where the likes of Virgil won't have huge amounts to do. You'd have hoped and thought, and he'll want to play, you know, all the games anyway, sort of course. Whereas in midfield, we're seeing the distances that the likes of Sabazlai are covering in games, and it's just not reasonable. And I don't think the manager will want to, you know, be asking him to just keep going again and again and again without a break. And so I worry that we're a little bit light, and you don't want to be in a situation where come March, April, you're thinking, oh, if only they'd have done 1 or 2 more, you know, we'd feel like we were in a really good position to attack the big trophies now. But we'll see. There's always January. I'm hoping right now, as well as the contract situation, that they are sort of planning towards that and thinking, well, who might be available, you know, that maybe wasn't in the summer, or who might be available in January, and we can, you know, start having those conversations, because I think the possibilities this season are really strong, and so you want the new manager to feel like he's got, you know, as many weapons at his disposal as possible. And so, yeah, I'd have liked a little bit more. I think as fans, you know, we're funny. We always want 1 or 2 more, don't we? No matter how well they've done. But I think in midfield is where we at the moment look a little bit short of that required quality for an entire season. So I'm hopeful that they rectify that in January and we can get to there pretty unscathed. And if they can, I think they're in a really good position to do well this year.
Yeah, but it's whether we can get to January or not. There's a hell of a lot of games all packed.
There is, yeah, 6 in the Champions League, yeah.
Well, 8, isn't it? Oh, no, 6 before 6 January.
Before Christmas, yeah.
Blimey. Crikey. Okay. But that's, you mentioned contracts there. Paul had a question, our friend Paul. He said, he asks, was there anything behind Salah's little post-match bombshell yesterday? As in, was it a message to the fans, or was it possibly some kind of power play to force a conversation between his agent and the club, or was he just simply answering a question that somebody asked him?
Yeah, it's a really good question, a really interesting question. He always feels, Mo Salah, like everything he says is very deliberate, and so even doing post-match interviews, or you know, the fact that he's doing them, he's coming out and doing things at the moment, when maybe in the past he's kind of, you know, avoided it or whatever, is quite an interesting thing. So he seems quite happy to talk at the moment. So you're wondering, why is that? And then you think, well, is this part of a long goodbye and a long managed goodbye where he's, trying to, control the narrative around that, control the kind of, the emotions, and to let everyone know, listen, this might be the last year, so let's all enjoy it together, which is the message. Or is it something that, putting a little bit of pressure on the club and on the owners or the directors or whoever it might be to say, listen, don't forget, like, I've only got, a few months left, and I'm sure they haven't forgotten. But, if you did want a new contract and you did want an offer of a new contract, scoring a brilliant goal at Old Trafford, and then coming on telly and reminding everyone and allowing Liverpool's significant online army of supporters to go, come on, this is a no-brainer, and lots of people are saying it, and it's not just sort of supporters, it's ex-players and journalists have all go, surely this guy deserves a contract. And so if it was a deliberate ploy to add a little bit of pressure, then it certainly seems to have worked, because there's been a kind of a deluge really of people, and like I say, not just supporters, but like journalists and former players as well, who've jumped on this and used it as a kind of a spark to demand or certainly suggest that Liverpool would be very wise to sort this out sooner rather than later. And so I think it probably is, he is trying to do something with it. What that something is, we'll have to wait and see. But I think as Liverpool fans, we'd all love that wait and see to be a new contract announcement sometime this autumn would be great.
Oh man, absolutely. And how confident are you about Trent and Virgil signing as well?
Yeah, I think all three of them in different ways are all in the balance a little bit. I think for Mo, it's always felt it's a little bit more down to him. Like, what does he want? I think he was tempted by the Saudi League a year or so ago, but I don't think that project has gone maybe quite as well as what people were anticipating. That you look at some of the crowds and the attention sort of around it, and it's it's struggling to establish itself as a kind of a serious league. And then the team didn't perform very well in the World Cup Championship. I think they would have hoped to have done a little bit better here, not necessarily win it, but get through one round at least. And so I think it's looking less appealing for someone like Mo Salah, who's still very clearly at the sort of the top of his game. That's not to say that that's the only move he could make. There's other European clubs who I'm sure would love to take him, but who are they if they got the financial power at the moment to sort of make a deal like that happen? Again, you're sort of unsure, and so I think it might be a case of if you'd have asked him a year or so ago, he would have maybe felt like it was a possibility to leave, and he looks to me like someone who could be persuaded into certainly adding a year or two, and then it's just up to the kind of the ownership on what they're prepared to offer him, because there is a reluctance to offer longer contracts to players once they're the other side of 30, and I understand that. Anyone who watched yesterday's game and the artist formerly known as Casemiro, and what we kind of saw on the pitch of him, and as Casemiro's partner reminded everyone, look at all the European Cups he's won and look at everything that he's won and stuff like that. And he was a great player, but he certainly isn't now. And so I think there is a wariness of what happens when any player's legs go, and what you're left with often is just very high wages and no one else willing to take them. But Mo Salah just looks in such phenomenal shape that you just don't see that happening anytime soon. He's so professional, looks after himself so well, and he's adapted his game so intelligently that I just feel like it makes sense to to not get too fixated on his age and more look at his output and how likely that is to continue. So I'm getting more and more confident that I think Mo will stay. Virgil, I think it just will be a similar situation. I think he'll want to stay. I think the owners will want to give him a 1 year extension, and I think he probably like 3, and hopefully they just shake hands on 2 in the middle and then kind of move on, because again, he doesn't look like his standards have dropped a little bit from the extraordinarily high standards that he set. He's not quite player, but I think that was more the injury the nasty one in the Pickford incident than it was sort of age. But he's such a clever player, Virgil, and he's got such incredible physical attributes, and and his leadership. I think there's still a huge amount that he's able to bring and offer at this football club, even if he's not quite the athlete that he maybe was sort of a few years ago. So I would hope that one will get done. And then Trent, it's completely sort of up to him and how he sort of sees his future. I believe he just wants to see how it went with the new manager a little bit and give that a bit of a go before sort of committing, which is understandable in a way because Jurgen Klopp's all he's known, and Jurgen Klopp was a real sort of father figure in his life, and seeing the next contract is a really big one for him, and he'll really have no shortage of suitors, and so I think he holds a lot of the cards, and I think the football club needs to sort of accept that really. But if he is waiting to see how it goes, all these wins can only help, really. He looks like he's enjoying his football. He doesn't look like he enjoys getting taken off too much, but he certainly looks like he's enjoying, winning and everything around that. So hopefully we'll have the good news there too. So without making myself look too silly, I'd put all three of them at over a 50% chance of staying. I think Virgil is probably the highest because I think it'll just end up making complete sense to everyone for sort of him to say. And I think if both parties kind of give the other a little, go a little bit further than what they'd like, then I think, and find the compromise, I think that one would be fine. And I think I'd put Trent at the second most likely, just because I think we'll do well this season. I think that'll convince him to sign up for another big chunk. And then Virgil, and Mo Salah, they'll be the third most likely. But I still think the likelihood of Mo Salah staying is increasing week by week. The more he scores and the more he smiles, and the more possible it is. It looks that Liverpool are going to be a force in this season and beyond.
Well, I hope so. I really hope they all sign, but I think it's important the timing of when to offer the contract as well. Like, I think, for example, sitting down with Trent today, the day after a 3-0 victory at Old Trafford, where he gets to finish the match or whatever. Oh, no, he didn't. Sorry, Conor Bradley came on again. But he was at least happy and smiling at the end of the match. And he said in front of the cameras, in case any listeners have missed it, he said, I'll be back to the cameras at the final whistle to say, because he had that goal ruled offside where he kissed the camera and stuff. He seemed to be referring to, I'll be back at Old Trafford to kiss the camera next time, which was a nice little hint about where he's at. And I just think maybe it's the timing of when FSG are going to offer the contract that could convince them to stay, if FSG really want them to stay as much as us fans do, because we can see just how important all three of them are. They're all vital to us. But anyway, yeah, you mentioned Casemiro. Just a quick question about like sort of the thought process behind Anfield Wrap, how you are on the Anfield Wrap, because I compared Casemiro's performance to a type of French sausage called an andouillette, which is basically the asshole of the pig. It's really disgusting. The bottom of the colon of the pig, basically the ass tube where the poo comes out. That's what they make into a sausage called an andouillette, and it smells horrible. And people actually eat it, and they say it's delicious, but it just smells like ass. So I compared Casemiro's performance to that sausage yesterday, the andouillette, and I feel I have complete freedom to do that because no one really cares about Copon, and I don't know, anybody who knows Casemiro, for example. So, it won't get back to him. I don't know if he was in front of me. Maybe I would choose a different type of sausage to compare his performance to. I would temper my words somehow. And I just wonder if when you're interviewing people or when you're speaking in front of the mic, if, for example, Casemiro played for Liverpool and he put in that performance yesterday, and there's a chance that what you say might get back to him, you have to sort of temper your words a little bit, bring it down, even though in your head, you're like, you're shit, mate.
Yeah, I think a little bit. I think I mean, firstly, I'm sure Casimodo's been called worse than what you've called him, so I wouldn't stress about it too much. I think for me, and I think for a lot of us, I think we always just try and be fair. And if you're being fair, then people can't have too many complaints. And so when a player puts in a poor performance, I think you just have to call it for what it is and say it was a poor performance. And I don't think a player could or should have any argument to that. I think if you start to get personal, you start to say, oh, he's shit and he doesn't care, or he's shit and he looks like he's not trying, or he's this, that, and the other sorts of start name calling, then I think that's where you sort of have to be, a little bit careful. I think because you're going into the realms then of just sort of like personal slander, really. And that's not to say that there's ever been a situation where anyone's ever got in touch with us and said we thought you were sort of unfair. But I think if you got yourselves a reputation as a business, if you like, of someone who was, personal attacks and things like that, I think, the players might think twice about maybe doing some stuff with you in the future. But to be honest, like, that's not like something that, like, I'm thinking about sort of day to day, because I'm just sort of not really that kind of person anyway. Like, I'm just not really, and I don't think most of us involved like are really. Like, we've all got players who we like sort of more than others, and you've got your favourites and then the ones you're not sure about. But I don't even think, even before the Anfield Wrap, when I was in the stands, there wasn't ever anyone who I'd really, give a load of vitriol to, really, because I think, I mean, we've been fortunate. Obviously, we've watched some of the best players in Europe play for us for some time now. If I was an Evertonian, then I might have a sort of a slightly different, outlook on both football and life. I think it is fair to say. But I think for us, the standard of football has been so high and the intensity has been so great that, I think you'd struggle to name a player who wasn't trying in the Jurgen Klopp era, for instance, because they wouldn't have lasted very long. And so I think for us, a footballer doesn't need telling when they've played badly. They know, they're their own biggest critics, and so they know when the standards drop. And so if Liverpool put in a bad performance, I don't think anyone could be expecting the Anfield Wrap or Cop On or even just a supporter on Twitter to try and polish a turd or to try and paint it into something it is not. I think we always just, try and be more understanding of, why is a player's dropped? Is it fatigue? Is he carrying an injury? Is there something, going on? Is it, the manager's instructions? Trying to sort of look at it that way and a bit more reasons rather than just go, he's 1 week he's brilliant because we won and then the next week he's shite. I think exploring the grey areas in between are just where more interesting conversation kind of happens and lands, and life isn't black and white, and football isn't black and white, and you could win a game and have a bit of luck and not play particularly well, and you can lose a game but actually do everything brilliantly. I point to where we lost 3-0 at Barcelona in the Champions League. I maintained that Liverpool played quite well that night. It was just one of those situations when another team has got Lionel Messi in it, some extraordinary things have happened. And obviously, that's an easy one to reference now because everyone knows what happens in the second leg, but I still kind of felt that. So, I wouldn't have like done a podcast after the game and said, I'm furious with them. How can you get beat 3-0 against Barcelona? Because it just can't happen in football. And like I say, results just dictate everything in terms of your mood and in terms of what happens in football, and that's just sort of the way it is. But performances and things like that kind of are a bit more nuanced than that, and I'd like to think that the Anfield Wrap tries to be as nuanced as possible.
It's a great answer. Yeah. Yeah, it's very interesting. I agree. I think there is a line between personal and fair criticism. And God knows what I would have said about Paul Konchesky had Cop On existed back then. But anyway, or his mum. But sorry, we won't get personal. Just a couple more questions. You're obviously always talking about Liverpool Football Club, but you mentioned Everton there. Oh, what's it like to share a city with the Evertonians these days?
I think, do you know what? I think they've just sort of given up a bit in a way that's like quite sad. And so, um, yeah, it's a funny one at the moment, really. Like I was expecting more anger after the weekend when they threw away a 2-0 lead and kind of ended up losing that game 3-2. But I think instead it's like, oh, of course we've done that. They're just so deeply miserable now, and it's hard to kind of get take much joy from it, really. And so
It's quite funny though.
I know it
Still.
is. I mean, look, it was funny when it
I mean,
happened. Like I was
yeah,
laughing a lot when it
yeah.
happened, but I'm talking about specifically like Evertonian misery. Like I listened to
It's
I listened to
true.
a couple of podcasts after the game, and
Mhm.
I was hoping for ranting a raven, and instead they just sounded like deeply miserable in a way that kind of like
Yeah.
didn't bring me much joy whatsoever. And so they are in many ways seemingly one of the hardest teams to support and certainly enjoy supporting. They seem to have made like permanent misery a state of being and a part of the club. And so I don't really know how they sort of get through it, whether they, it's a change of ownership, whether it's finding a manager who they can sort of get behind. I don't know, but they seem like so far away from anything positive at the moment. Then it's a hard juggernaut of misery to turn around.
They're like a living version of that Pablo Escobar meme, aren't they? From the Netflix series of Pablo Escobar just staring into the distance in various places in his garden or whatever. Yeah, it must be very difficult for them. Bless them. But the last question, John, thank you so much for giving up so much of your time. Really, really appreciate it. Love this chat. Are we winning the league, or in Man City the cheats? They're just, no one can stop them.
I don't know is the honest answer, but I would rather that than a firm committal of it's not going to happen. I think the fact that it at all seems possible, I think, is really nice, and I think shows, how much talent there is in the squad, and how quickly it looks like that things are going to work out well under the manager. So we've got a chance, and I think that is all you can ask for at this stage.
Great stuff. Thank you so much, John. It's been a real pleasure
of course.
having you back. It's been really great. Do you have anything particular that you want to mention about the Anfield Wrap? Any kind of specials, or is it just, get out there and subscribe?
Yeah, if you just want to, we're doing quite a lot for free on our YouTube channel at the moment. So do make sure that you're subscribed to YouTube. That is, a free thing to do. We do have a pay-in aspect of the video service, but you can, subscribe's a tricky word because people use it for lots of different, different businesses use it for different things. But if you just, like our YouTube stuff and check us out there, and if you press the sort of the subscribe button on there, you'll get notifications when we do stuff, and we're doing quite a lot at the moment for free as well as paid for you to enjoy. So yeah, check us out on there.
Excellent. Thanks very much, John. Enjoy your day. Enjoy the couple of weeks off. Well, not for you, but for Liverpool, and all the best to you. Thank you so much.
Cheers. Pleasure.